Picture this for a moment. A student flies thousands of miles, spends years grinding through America's toughest classrooms, survives sleepless nights, impossible exams, and relentless pressure. Graduation day arrives. Applause fills the hall, cameras flash. The future should begin right there. And then something absurd happens. We hand them a diploma and a countdown clock. Not a job offer, not certainty, not opportunity. A timer, a visa lottery, a legal maze where their future depends not on talent, not on effort, not on results, but on luck. Ask yourself this: what kind of superpower trains the world's brightest minds and then forces them to leave? This is not a small policy detail buried in paperwork. This is a high-stakes economic decision happening in slow motion every single year right in front of us. While we debate, other countries are watching. While we hesitate, they are recruiting. And while we delay, innovation quietly packs its bags. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't say out loud. The global race for talent is already underway, and the finish line is moving fast. Capital follows brains, jobs follow builders, power follows execution. Lose the talent, and everything else eventually follows. So tonight, I want you to lean in, because this isn't about immigration headlines or political talking points. This is about whether America continues to win in the decades ahead, or whether it slowly teaches the future and hands it over to someone else. Stay with me, because once you see this clearly, you'll never look at a graduation ceremony the same way again. Imagine a system so powerful, so obvious, that the moment a student earns a degree from an American university, the country says, stay, not maybe, not later, not after a lottery, a lawyer, or a waiting room filled with uncertainty. Stay because you've earned it. For decades, the United States has attracted the most ambitious minds on the planet. They cross oceans to sit in our classrooms, work in our labs, and push the boundaries of science, finance, engineering, and medicine. We train them with world-class institutions funded by immense public and private capital. And then, at the precise moment when their productivity is highest, when theory turns into execution, we force many of them to leave. That is not immigration policy. That is economic self-sabotage. A degree from an American university should come with something more than a framed certificate. It should come with a clear, automatic visa, a signal that says, if you invest years of your life mastering skills here, this country will give you the opportunity to deploy those skills here. No ambiguity, no bureaucratic roulette. The rules should be transparent, predictable, and aligned with outcomes. This isn't charity. This is competitiveness. The modern global economy is a war for talent, and talent is options. If we hesitate, other countries won't. They will welcome these graduates, offer certainty, and capture the downstream benefits. The startups founded, the patents filed, the jobs created. Every time we let a trained graduate walk away, we are exporting future growth. Critics worry about fairness, about domestic workers, about control. Those concerns deserve seriousness, not slogans. An automatic visa tied to graduation can be structured with rigorous vetting, clear standards, and defined pathways. It can prioritize advanced degrees, critical fields, and demonstrable contribution. Smart policy doesn't close doors, it installs filters. And America has always been best when it filters for excellence. Look at history. Immigrant-founded companies have reshaped entire industries. They didn't replace American workers. They hired them. They didn't weaken the economy. They expanded it. The graduates sitting in our universities today are tomorrow's founders, researchers, and builders. Sending them away doesn't protect opportunity, it shrinks it. There's also a deeper message at stake. When we hesitate to grant a visa to someone we just educated, we undermine our own credibility. We tell the world we value talent in theory, but fear it in practice. That contradiction erodes trust, not just among students, but among investors, institutions, and global partners. An automatic visa on graduation restores coherence. It aligns education with employment, investment with return, and values with action. It tells the next generation of innovators that America doesn't just teach ambition, it rewards it. The choice is simple. We can continue funding the training of global talent for the benefit of our competitors, or we can keep the people we already chose to educate, already vetted, already proven. A diploma should not be a goodbye. It should be a beginning right here. Economic leadership is never preserved by accident. It is the result of deliberate choices about capital, regulation, innovation, and above all, talent. If you want to understand why nations rise and fall economically, follow where the smartest people choose to live and build. Today, the United States stands at a crossroads because the global competition for talent has intensified and hesitation now carries a real price. Every year, America's universities produce thousands of highly trained graduates from around the world, engineers who understand advanced systems, scientists working at the edge of discovery, analysts fluent in data and markets. These individuals are not theoretical assets. They are deployable, immediately productive contributors. When we allow them to graduate and then force them into immigration uncertainty, we are signaling weakness, not confidence. In our own economic model, competitiveness is not just about wages or tax policy. It's about velocity. The faster talent can move from education into execution, the faster innovation compounds. Countries that recognize this are designing immigration systems that are direct, predictable, and welcoming to skilled graduates. If we remain slow and fragmented, capital and ideas will reroute. They always do. Keeping international graduates is one of the highest return economic investments available. The infrastructure already exists. The training has already been paid for. The screening has already occurred through academic performance and institutional standards. What remains is the final step: permission to contribute. Blocking that step does not protect jobs. It suppresses growth. Some argue that the market will adjust, that companies will find talent elsewhere. That is precisely the problem. When firms are forced to relocate research development or headquarters functions to follow talent, the spillover benefits, local hiring, tax revenue, community investment, move with them. Economic gravity follows people, not policy intentions. There is also a misconception that talent retention is a zero-sum game. It isn't. High-skill workers expand the opportunity set. They increase productivity, create new categories of employment, and raise the ceiling for entire industries. History shows this repeatedly. Innovation ecosystems thrive when they are dense with expertise, diversity of thought, and ambition. Driving away trained graduates thins that ecosystem at exactly the wrong moment. A serious economic strategy acknowledges risk and manages it. Immigration policy tied to degrees can be structured with safeguards, background checks, performance benchmarks, and sector prioritization. This is not about open doors. It's about intelligent doors. Excellence should move through them efficiently. The question then is not whether we can afford to keep these graduates. The question is whether we can afford not to. In a world where capital is mobile and innovation is borderless, self-imposed talent shortages are a strategic error. Economic leadership demands clarity. If we believe in growth, in innovation, and in America's role at the center of the global economy, then we must act like it. Retaining the people we educate is not generosity. It is discipline. The nations that win the next decade will be the ones that understand this early and move decisively. Efficiency matters in markets and institutions, and especially in policy. When systems become overly complex, they stop serving their original purpose and begin creating unintended damage. America's high-skill immigration framework is a textbook example. It was designed to allocate opportunity fairly, yet in practice it injects randomness into decisions that should be driven by merit, preparation, and economic need. Consider what happens today when an international student graduates from an American university. After years of education, testing, and vetting, their future hinges on a lottery. Not performance, not demand for their skills, not contribution, chance. That is not how serious economies make serious decisions. The disconnect is glaring. Universities admit these students selectively. Employers recruit them competitively. Markets value them precisely because their skills are scarce and specialized. And then policy steps in and says the final outcome will be determined by probability. Randomness may have a place in entertainment. It has no place in talent allocation. A degree-linked visa is not radical. It is corrective. It removes friction at the exact point where productivity should accelerate. Instead of forcing graduates and employers into years of uncertainty, it creates a clean handoff from education to employment. That handoff is where economic momentum is either captured or lost. The costs of the current system are not abstract. Companies delay projects, move teams abroad, or abandon initiatives entirely because staffing is unstable. Graduates postpone major life decisions, hesitate to innovate, or leave the country altogether. Over time, these micro decisions accumulate into macro-level drag on growth. Some worry that removing the lottery undermines fairness. In reality, fairness begins with criteria that make sense. A diploma from an accredited American institution is not a random credential. It reflects years of investment, evaluation, and demonstrated capability. If we trust universities to select students and businesses to hire them, we should trust that same pipeline to inform immigration outcomes. A smarter system doesn't eliminate oversight, it sharpens it. Visa eligibility can be tied to degree level, field relevance, and verified employment. Compliance can be monitored. Abuse can be punished. But efficiency must be restored. Complexity that produces unpredictability is not protection. It is paralysis. Markets reward clarity. Talent seeks certainty. Capital flows toward environments where rules are stable and rational. When policy fails to deliver that, participants adapt, usually by leaving. And once ecosystems begin to hollow out, rebuilding them is expensive and slow. This is not a call for emotion or ideology. It is a call for alignment. Education policy, labor demand, and immigration rules should reinforce one another, not work at cross purposes. When they do align, the payoff is substantial, faster innovation, stronger companies, and a more resilient economy. A system that replaces randomness with reason sends a powerful signal. It tells the world that outcomes here are earned, not drawn. That performance matters. That preparation is rewarded. That is how competitive nations think. Serious reforms don't emerge in isolation. They surface when economic reality becomes too loud to ignore and when ideas begin converging across boardrooms, universities, and policy circles. What's notable about the discussion around degree-based visas is not who first said it, but how often it keeps resurfacing. That persistence is a signal. It tells us the problem is structural and the solution is intuitive. Across the political spectrum, there is a growing acknowledgement that the current approach is misaligned with national interests. Different leaders phrase it differently, emphasize different risks, or propose different guardrails. But the core logic remains the same. Educating global talent and then forcing it out of the country weakens America's competitive position. When unlikely voices begin echoing similar conclusions, it's usually because the math is undeniable. This isn't about ideology, it's about outcomes. Nations that dominate innovation don't do so by accident. They create ecosystems where talent, capital, and opportunity reinforce each other. When any one of those elements is restricted, the entire system underperforms. Immigration policy that ignores economic feedback loops is not principled, it's outdated. What makes a degree-linked visa proposal compelling is its simplicity. It doesn't require reinventing institutions or expanding unchecked pathways. It builds on systems already trusted: accredited universities, standardized credentials, and verifiable employment. In an era of polarization, policies that are both limited and effective have the highest chance of durability. Critics often frame reform as a slippery slope. But smart governance is not about resisting change, it's about shaping it. Clear eligibility criteria, phased implementation, and targeted fields can ensure the policy serves national priorities. Reform doesn't mean surrendering control, it means exercising it intelligently. There's also a geopolitical dimension that's impossible to ignore. Other countries are watching. Some are already acting. They are aligning education, immigration, and industrial strategy into a single pipeline designed to attract and retain skilled graduates. When those pipelines succeed, the advantages compound over time. Talent clusters form, capital follows, influence shifts. America's strength has always been its adaptability. At key moments, it has adjusted policy to reflect new realities, from trade to technology to capital markets. Immigration should be no different. Holding on to systems designed for a different era doesn't preserve stability, it creates vulnerability. The most effective reforms are often the least dramatic. They don't shout. They work. A degree-based visa is not a grand experiment. It's a calibration, correcting a mismatch between investment and return. And because the idea resonates across diverse constituencies, it has something rare to modern policy debates: staying power. Momentum matters. When conversations repeat in public forums, economic conferences, and policy discussions, they shape expectations. Expectations influence decisions long before laws change. The question is whether leadership moves ahead of that curve or waits until competitive ground has already been lost. History favors countries that recognize inflection points early. This is one of every credible policy must answer one final question: how does it work in practice? Vision without execution is just rhetoric. A degree-linked visa succeeds or fails not on applause, but on design, on whether it strengthens the system without compromising security, fairness, or accountability. The good news is that this is solvable if approached with discipline. First, vetting is not an obstacle. It is an asset. Graduates of American universities are among the most thoroughly evaluated populations in the world. They have passed admissions filters, academic benchmarks, and years of continuous assessment. Layered on top of that can be background checks, biometric verification, and compliance monitoring. This is not starting from zero. It's refining an already robust screening process. Second, scope matters. A serious policy defines its boundaries clearly. Degree level, field relevance, and institutional accreditation can all be used to target areas of strategic importance. Advanced STEM fields, critical infrastructure disciplines, and high-demand professional skills are obvious starting points. Precision is what turns reform into strength. Third, accountability must be explicit. A degree-based visa should be conditional on lawful employment, tax compliance, and adherence to clear rules. Violation should carry consequences, swift and predictable. Systems earn public trust when enforcement is visible and consistent. That principle applies here as it does in markets. There is also room for measured pacing. Implementation can be phased. Pilot programs can test assumptions. Data can guide adjustments. This is how complex institutions evolve without destabilizing existing labor markets. Speed matters, but so does sequencing. Security concerns deserve seriousness, not dismissal. Any pathway must integrate national security reviews and information sharing across agencies. But security and openness are not opposites. In fact, transparent, rule-based systems are easier to monitor than opaque, lottery-driven ones. Predictability enhances oversight. From an economic standpoint, the upside is asymmetric. Retained graduates generate compounding returns over time. They innovate, hire, and build networks that outlast any single job. The costs, by contrast, are limited and manageable when criteria are tight and enforcement is real. That is a favorable risk profile. Public confidence hinges on clarity. When people understand who qualifies, why they qualify, and how the system is enforced, resistance softens. Ambiguity fuels mistrust. Precision builds legitimacy. At its core, this is about institutional coherence. Education policy, labor demand, and immigration enforcement should point in the same direction. When they do, outcomes improve across the board. When they don't, friction grows, and friction is the enemy of performance. The strongest systems are not the most permissive or the most restrictive. They are the most intentional. A degree-linked visa, properly designed, signals that intention. It says this country rewards preparation, values contribution, and governs with foresight. Execution is the difference between decline and durability. Get the details right, and the benefits will speak for themselves. So the real question isn't complicated. It's uncomfortable when the smartest people on earth come here, when they prove themselves in our universities, earn our trust, master our systems. Do we tell them thank you, or do we tell them goodbye? Because make no mistake, this decision is already being made, not in speeches, in silence. Every time a graduate boards a plane home, every time a startup is founded somewhere else, every time innovation that could have happened here doesn't. Power doesn't disappear overnight. It leaks slowly, quietly, then all at once. The countries that win the future won't be the ones with the loudest slogans. They'll be the ones with the clearest rules. The ones that understand a simple truth: you don't build greatness by pushing talent away. You build it by keeping it close. A diploma should never be an exit sign. It should be a key to opportunity, a key to contribution, a key to the next generation of companies, jobs, and breakthroughs. History will not ask what we meant to do. It will ask what we chose to do, when the talent was already here, already trained, already ready. And the only question that will matter then is this: did we let the future walk out the door, or did we have the courage to tell it to stay?